Welcome to the Social Media Takeaway. I'm your host, Louise MacDonald, and today I'm speaking to Tracey Carell, a serial entrepreneur, property investor, and founder of the award-winning global business IntroBiz. And today we're going to be speaking about how you can use networking to grow your business. We'll be looking at the common pitfalls to avoid and how to work a room so that it works for your business. Hi, Tracey. So Tracey Carell is a serial entrepreneur, property investor, and founder of the award-winning global business network IntroBiz. She is the author of Master Networking and the creator of the networking tool Fortune in the Follow-Up. She's a motivational speaker, mentor, and networking coach. Wow, I'm exhausted to even reading all that out, Tracey. You're very welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me on, Louise. Appreciate it.
No, it's great to have you here. So, Tracey, do you maybe want to start by sharing your journey and how you came to kind of work in the whole area of networking, business networking?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to let you all into a little secret. I first started networking in 2007, and I used to work for a business magazine called Elite Magazine. And I remember my boss at the time, I started working for them in September, and he said to me, I want you to go out networking to get new business. And I looked at him and I said, networking? What's all that about then? And he said, oh, well, you go to these events, you swap your business cards and you do business. I went, oh, that's fine. Yeah, I can do that. No problem at all. So off I went. I was a cocky little saleswoman, you know, and nobody obviously had told me what networking was about or anything. And obviously when you're in advertising sales, you are only as good as your last month's sale. So off I went to my first event. It was at the Copthorne Hotel in Cardiff. I'll never forget it. And in I walk and I'm saying, hi, I'm Tracey Jenkins. I sell advertising space. Do you think you'd be interested? And when I look back now, it's really cringy. But, you know, I think when you're in business, I mean, the first 3 months, I didn't get any business from it. Surprise, surprise. So I went to a couple of people who I'd actually built quite a good friendship with. And I said, Julie, what am I doing wrong? I'm not getting any business from this networking. Am I doing something wrong? Because it's just not working for me. And she went, yeah, you are doing something wrong. And I do think it's always good to get honest feedback, you know, constructive criticism, because that's how we improve and grow. So she said, yeah, you're giving it the hard sell. Networking isn't about that. It's about getting to know people, get them to know you, like you, trust you. And then eventually the business will follow. I said, eventually? I've got to get business now.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah. And she said, well, perhaps networking isn't the right strategy for you. So I thought, well, I said, no, I do actually like it though, because I grew up in the pub trade. My father was my mum and dad were publicans. So I used to come down into my living room. Obviously, I had my living room up above the pub, but I always say, come down into the pub, and there was a room full of people. So I was always being surrounded by lots of people from the age of 12 when my dad went into the pub trade. So I fell in love with just being, you know, sociable, if you like. So I really enjoyed the networking scene, but obviously because I wasn't getting any business. So I said, well, what have I got to do? And they said, well, just get to know people and help other people and see where that takes you. So I started to do that. And what I found was when I was chatting to people, I became a natural connector, because I was working the room. I'd start talking to a couple of people, and then I'd say, oh, I need to introduce you to this person across the room. Come with me. And I'd do the introductions, and I really enjoyed it. And I actually thought to myself, oh, I like this. I could do this for my own business. But what I'd noticed in the Welsh business community, at the time, there wasn't any networks around. There's loads now. But at the time, there wasn't any around that would strategically place you with your target audience, you know, and I thought to myself, well, I know what I can do. What about if my USP became introducing businesses to businesses and finding out who their target audience was and putting them on a table with their target audience? So we were a little bit like a business dating agency without the kissing, you know, and it was working, because I'd go to events and I'd be a bit frustrated because there would be maybe 2 or 3 people from a bank, the same bank, you know, all colleagues together on the same table. Then there'd be another bank on the table with 1 or 2 colleagues. And then there'd be me and maybe 2 or 3 other people. So I could only speak to 3 or 4 companies. But not only that, it wasn't just for that purpose, you know, put all your colleagues, separate them on separate tables. And that's what we did, is we'd say, well, number one, we'll try not to put you on a table with a competitor. We do say about collaboration. So it could be that there were 2 solicitors on a table, but one did corporate law and then the other one did divorce law, perhaps, you know, so we try and do it that way. So it took us obviously longer to do the table planning, but we just felt it was more effective. And that's, as I say, that was a USP that we came up with, and it worked quite well and people were liking it. And basically we've grown from there, and now we're all over the world. I've got a franchise in Bristol, which is great. But, as I say, it's when you start matching people to the right people, that's when the magic happens.
Brilliant. Okay, I know a lot of people that are listening to this now, like walking into a room of people that they don't know by themselves. Like I can see why the bank, why they were going with colleagues, because it's your wing, isn't it? It's like you're not by yourself, but it's such a daunting thing to do. So if somebody's been afraid or just kind of thought, oh, can't do that, what advice would you give them?
Well, there's a couple of things that they can do is, there's especially when they are a bit shy or introverted, because a lot of introverts or shy people don't like walking into that room. And it's a challenge that comes up all the time. So what I say to them is a couple of things you can do is you can either buddy up and go along with a friend, not necessarily a colleague in the same company. And yes, if you go as colleagues, you can, to get your confidence as a starting point, maybe the more you go, it's a bit like riding a bike. The more you ride the bike, the better you become. So over time, if you go with somebody to build up that confidence, that's always good. The other thing that you could do is you ask the event host, could you potentially introduce them to some people when they get there, or when you arrive, speak to the organizers and say, oh, hi, I'm fairly new to networking. Would you mind introducing me to a couple of people? That's something that we do as a business, IntroBiz. When anybody comes to our event, it's always about the whole experience of how they feel when they come in. And we can usually tell from people's body language if they are feeling a little bit nervous or daunted, because they're a little bit inward. They perhaps are fidgety. They're looking around the room, but we don't make them feel uncomfortable, because what we always do is say, oh, hi, welcome to IntroBiz. So good to see you here. Are you happy to work the room, or would you like me to make you some introductions? And we'll go and help make those introductions. So obviously, if they don't come to an IntroBiz event and they go elsewhere, go and ask the event organizers. But the other question that I always say is this: think of it, if you're dreading walking into the room, flip your mindset and actually think to yourself, I've got a lot of knowledge to give. And now it's my duty to share that knowledge with other people to see how I can help solve their problem or serve their need. Because obviously that's what business is about, isn't it? It's serving a need, solving a problem. So, and when you flip it from, oh my God, I'm dreading walking into the room, to, hey, I know my stuff. I've got a lot of knowledge to give. I'm here to help solve people's problems. Now it's up to me and my duty to go and speak to people to see how I can help them solve their problems. So you're taking the onus off you, and you're thinking of it as serving others. And when you change that mindset, you then are more focused, and you go into the room thinking, yeah, well, get yourself that confidence. Even look in the mirror if you want. Do a look in the mirror before you leave and say, hey, I'm good at my stuff. Because, sometimes we all may be lacking confidence, or we don't believe in ourselves, or we're going through a tough time. And, if we've had a challenge in our business, a lot of people thinking then they have this imposter syndrome. I've suffered imposter syndrome over the years. I think everybody does. But if you think of it as your duty and you're there to serve others, it flips it, and it takes the onus off you and your nerves.
That's brilliant. So 3 pieces of advice there. So the first piece of advice is, if you're really nervous, find a buddy or a work colleague and go with them. So I love the second piece of advice. I never would have thought about that. Introduce yourself to the organizer and ask them to make some introductions if you're really feeling that. And self-conscious, I think it's the self-consciousness, like, oh my God, nobody's talking to me.
I have another one. I have another one. If you see somebody else on their own, because more often than not, if somebody's on their own, they're also feeling nervous. So, and I've got some really good stories of how I literally can, help people change their mindset, and, what's happened because of it, which maybe I'll share in the interview a little later.
Brilliant, brilliant. So the third thing is flip your mindset. Don't think about, oh, what I'm here to talk about. Think about how you can help people because you're an expert in your field. And the fourth, if you see somebody by themselves, they're probably feeling the same way, and go and approach them. Okay, tell that story, Tracey. So
well,
go for it.
I talk about this all the time, that, everybody wants to belong to something or to someone. And, we all want to feel special. When we walk into a room, how many times have you gone into, say, a restaurant where you've known the restaurateur or the waiter, and they always say, hi, Louise. Oh, it's great to see you again. That's a really nice feeling, isn't it? And when people do that, it makes them feel more comfortable. And I remember going to a charity event at the Vale Resort many years ago, and I could see there was a lady stood on her own, and I knew who she was. She owned a big law firm in Cardiff with 400 lawyers. It was an amazing firm. She was an amazing entrepreneur. And you could see she was feeling uncomfortable because she was stood on her own. She was fidgeting. She was looking around the room. She was a little bit uncomfortable. So I went up to her, and I'll just use a name. I'll just make up a name. Hi, Sarah. It's Tracey from IntroBiz. How are you? And she said, oh, I'm fine, thank you. So I said, I can see that you're on your own. I said, would you like for me to come and introduce you to a couple of my friends and clients? And all of a sudden her body language changed. Her shoulders dropped. She was relieved. She went, oh my God, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. I took her over to the group of my friends and colleagues that were there and clients. And I introduced her. There was 2 little groups. I think there was 3 or 4 in the one and 2 or 3 in the other. Introduced her to one of the groups and walked away. Left her for 10 minutes. And then she came over to me and she went, oh, Tracey, she said, thank you so much for that. She said, I really appreciate you doing that for me tonight. She said, I've got to go now. She said, because some of my clients have arrived, because I've got a table of 10 this evening and they're all starting to arrive. So I must go and obviously welcome them. So I said, no problem at all. She said, can I take your card? So I said, yes, of course. So another little tip, always carry your business cards or a scanner for LinkedIn, like or the QR codes on your phone, because you never know who's going to ask for it. So I gave her my card. I asked for her card and she had one and she gave it to me. And she said, give me a call next week. She said, we're not involved with IntroBiz, are we? And I said, no. So I followed up with her the following week, because this was a Friday evening. Now, I didn't get through to her. It took me probably about half a dozen phone calls, but I'm like a little Rottweiler. I don't give up. If they've told me to ring them, I will ring them, So I eventually got hold of her. I arranged an appointment for like a week, 10 days later. I went into that appointment. An hour and a half later, I came out and I'd sold her £5,000 worth of business.
There you go.
Why? Because I made her feel comfortable when she was feeling uncomfortable. I made her feel that she belonged to something by introducing her to a group of people. So I implore you, I encourage you, whoever's listening today, who can you make somebody feel special? Who can you make somebody feel that they belong to someone or to something? Because when they do, they'll never forget you, and you may come away with £1,000, £5,000, whatever. But that's a really good example of what happens when you made somebody feel special.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So for somebody that's planning to go to an event, what preparation can they do in advance of the event to make sure that that they get as much from it?
Well, there's a couple of things, obviously, and a lot of people don't actually do this, and they don't get their pitch right of what it is that they do and what problem do they solve.
Mm.
And I'll give you an example. We all want to know what's in it for us. Okay. Whenever we're talking to somebody, what can they do? How can they help me in my business? So just to give you an example, I've heard over the years, and sorry, accountants, if you are listening, but I'm only using you as an example because I've heard it so many times. And you'll have one accountant that will say, I'm an accountant. I do end of year tax returns, VAT returns, etc., blah, 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 and bookkeeping. So what? So what? But then you've got another accountant that will say, I help you to save money, save time, and make more money. I go, ooh, you've shown me, I'm interested. Tell me more. So it's so imperative to get your pitch right before you even go out networking, to let people know what is it that you do, what problem do you solve, and who do you serve? Because when you get that pitch right, people are more likely, and as you know, Louise, I'm sure every event that you've gone to, there's certain events that will make you stand up and do a 1-minute pitch, a 2-minute pitch, and a 5-minute pitch. And I teach a lot of people how to network. And we actually, when I do a session on pitching, and I could talk for hours on pitching, we do a 1-minute pitch, a 2-minute pitch, and then a 5-minute pitch that we get them to do. I give them that work and that task to do, because again, all networking events are different and some are slightly longer than others. And if you've got 5 minutes, utilize it, because some people say, oh God, I'm dreading this, and they'll only stand up for a minute. But if you've got 4 more minutes to talk about your business, you can give them more information, but it's powerful information rather than just, I'm an accountant and I do bookkeeping, end of year tax returns, da, 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 da. People want to know, can they save money? Can they make more money? Can they save time? That's what we're all in business for. And if you can help people to do any of those 3 things, you're onto a winner. But you've got to get that across in your clear pitch with clarity.
And I would even add to that to say, like, if you've already, because I help people do that too on social media, I help them to communicate what they do, how they're different, who they serve, what the problem is that they solve. I would say anyone listening in that you're saying the same thing online as you are in person, because otherwise, if your pitch is very different in person than what your social media channels, your website say, you're going to confuse people and
Yeah.
they won't know what you're about. So, okay, so before you go to the event, be really clear on your pitch. I think you said it earlier on, have a business card in the pocket or have your QR code for your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is rocking it this weather. So have your LinkedIn profile updated.
Yeah,
Have,
absolutely. LinkedIn is
yeah.
working very well for us at the moment in our business. So yeah. And remember, LinkedIn is starting a conversation. So don't go in. I mean, I get all these messages on LinkedIn, these pitchy messages, and I'm like, oh my God, no. They go straight in for the kill. Whereas I like to start a conversation on LinkedIn, whether it's a happy birthday or, how are things, how you find your business, what's your growth strategy that's working for you right now, ask different questions to start a conversation. Because I always say, if you're on LinkedIn, treat it as though you were meeting somebody in person. You're not going to go straight in with, like I did many years ago.
But so
Learn
many
from my
people do
mistakes.
that, Tracy. It drives me crazy on LinkedIn.
Yeah, but that's why I like to teach people not, not to do
Don't
it
do
as
that.
I did when I
Yeah,
first started. Yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
Okay, anything else that they should do before they go besides get their probably their LinkedIn profile update, have their business cards, have their pitch ready?
Make sure their business cards are clean and professional looking, because first impressions count. And obviously, whatever you're wearing, make sure that again it's all super clean and not, like hems coming down or, you
Yeah.
know, yeah. So you just make sure that your attire is right. But also you could do, I don't know whether, like some networking events let you see the delegates beforehand. Sometimes they don't, and like with our expos, for instance, we start promoting our exhibitors. So look up where you're going, who's going to be there. If there's a conference, who's the speakers? Do you want to speak to one of the speakers? Do you want to go and go to one of the seminars, and do your research on the event beforehand to get as much information from that event as you possibly can.
That's
So,
really good. And would you even recommend connecting with them on LinkedIn or on Instagram or whatever
of course,
social media? Yeah, that's a good
yeah,
idea.
because again, once you connect with them on LinkedIn and then you meet them in person or vice versa, again, it's deepening the relationship by all of a sudden you've connected on LinkedIn, you start seeing their content, etc., etc., and you can start commenting on their content and giving them, really nice compliments. And then when you meet them in person, it just solidifies it a little bit more, it's deepening it.
Fantastic. Okay. Okay. Now, you have created a networking tool called Fortune in the follow-up. So, what advice do you give after the event? What do you do?
You've got to follow up, and I've got a process. As soon as I get business cards, I'll ask them if they okay for me to add them to the database. But we do that obviously, but we make sure because of GDPR compliance, and we don't want to spam people. Are you happy to receive some information about us? Yes. I then email them and make sure. But I've also my Fortune in the follow-up tool, which is here. It's basically a little diary so you can keep a track. But I also use a spreadsheet now. I've got a Google Doc, so all my leads, all the people that I have met, they go onto a Google Doc, and then I keep an eye on to see who, and making sure that you do follow up with them. So I usually invite people to our online events or our in-person events, and then just keep going through the process, touching and feeling the client on a fairly regular basis to potentially, invite them into the membership in our community.
Brilliant. Okay. Have you any success stories that you can share with us apart from your wonderful success story at the beginning?
Well, there's loads, to be honest. I mean, every event that I go to, there's always an opportunity, whether I either sell to somebody by following up or where I keep building the relationship. And obviously, we met at Pat and Donna Slattery's event, Louise,
Mm-hmm.
in person, and
Mm-hmm.
you're interviewing me on the podcast. So we might not have bought from each other, but we're obviously now building a relationship. You've invited me on, which is awesome. And I'm getting to learn a little bit more about you. And I'd like to invite you to my online networking event so that you can come and try an IntroBiz experience to see if you like it. And you just never ever know, what will come from meeting people. But probably the biggest tip I can give anybody when you're out there networking is never ever judge a book by its cover. And I talk a lot about, the scene with Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman.
Oh,
Remember when
yeah.
to the retail store dressed in her thigh-high boots and a miniskirt, and they thought she couldn't afford the clothes. And what happened a couple of months later, they made her feel uncomfortable and made her feel awful. And she went next door when she found the rich boyfriend, and he spent thousands of pounds worth of money next door. where they made her feel special, they made her feel comfortable. And then she goes back into the store with her bags and says, big mistake, huge. And they look at her and go, oh my God. It's like never judge, because you don't know who you're talking to. You could be talking to your next friend, your next joint venture partner or referral partner, or your business partner or client. So never, ever judge.
Excellent. And tell me, what about the online events? How do you find those?
Well, do you know what? It's really funny because I love my online events. We only used to do one a week on a Friday morning at 9 till 10, what we call our power hour, Fabulous Fridays. But we started to do them on a Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock now, because I was starting to get a few American clients and they couldn't come on the Friday. So I thought, well, let's change the day, change the time so that the Americans can come on. So that's what we do now, is we have a Wednesday as well, which is great. So they vary. You know, sometimes we get more on than other weeks. It just depends. But what the only difference is, you can't give somebody a hug. You're not there in physical person, but there's only, it's a screen is just in between you. You can still look someone in the eye. You can still get to know somebody. And there's lots and lots of business being done online. And I know it's not for everyone, because a lot of people do say to me, oh my God, I'm zoomed out. And I think after COVID, I don't want to do Zooms. I'd rather do in person. And don't get me wrong, I'm, out of the two, my in-person is my favorite, because I can hug someone. I'm a hugger, and I love meeting people in the flesh. However, what I do love about the online, it saves you time. It saves you the travel. It's convenient, and it's a global reach. You've got a global reach, and you can still connect to lots of people by coming online. So I think it's great to do the two. And in fact, we do more online than in person. So we do 8 events a month, obviously every Wednesday, Friday for the month. We do once a month in Cardiff, once a month in Bristol, and once a month in London. And I've got a Bristol franchise that does Bristol. And then IntroBiz HQ, we actually run Cardiff and London. And I love it, I love people. I love connecting them. So yeah, it's
Fantastic.
Not really a job. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, I suppose COVID has, moved so many people online that never would have been on a Zoom before. Like, I was already training online before COVID, so I was already an advocate of it. But then people started using it more and more during COVID. And I think another impact that COVID has had is that more people are working remotely now. So, like, I'm able to run my business. I have a team of people who work for me, but I'm able to work from the west of Ireland. So for me to go in person to an event, even if it's an hour or 2 hours away, that's my day gone. Whereas if I can hop on for an hour and network for an hour, then
Absolutely.
it's a wonderful opportunity. And then maybe a few times a year you can put in the diary and fly over to Bristol or London. Sure, nothing wrong with that either.
Exactly. And it's really nice, because I've seen over the last couple of years of our community meeting online, and then they come to one of the events and they meet in person. They're like, oh my God, I didn't realize you were this tall, or I didn't realize you were shorter. And it's really funny, some of their reactions, but then it's really nice when people do meet online and then they get to meet in person.
And you do feel like you know the person. It doesn't feel any different. It's like it's literally a hug is the first thing you'll do for meeting somebody in person for the first time, which is great. Yeah, which is really, really great. Okay, so what next for you then, Tracey? What's coming up?
So we've got our IntroBiz Expo that's happening on the 26th of June at Cardiff City Stadium, which is going to be a whole day of inspiration, education, connection. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then we've also got a Youth Biz conference, which we're going to be launching. Now, we're launching Youth Biz at the Expo, and it's going to be a young person's training academy to teach the youth how to network. Because, let's be honest, the education system, they don't teach these things. This is really soft skills, but a lot of them really need it, because a lot of them are shy, introverted. They've gone inward since COVID, where they lacking in confidence because they had to stay in for so long. So now IntroBiz wants to bridge that gap so that we can teach them that once you start talking to people, the opportunities are limitless. And, it needs to change. And I just want to be able to help and bridge that gap for the youth, so that they know that when they start talking to people and they really engage in conversations, that anything is possible when you put your mind to it.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so for somebody listening in here today who has never gone to a networking event, who has always said, oh, I don't have the time for that, what's the advice that you give them?
Oh my gosh. Well, just go network, because again, the opportunities are limitless. I ended up on Necker Island with Sir Richard Branson in 2019, 3 months before COVID. because I put it out there. And did I think that little old me from Cardiff was going to end up on Necker Island with all these wonderful, successful entrepreneurs? No, I didn't. I never thought I would. However, I do believe in the law of attraction. And I do believe that if there's something that you want in your life, you have to put it out there and you have to take action and make it happen. I don't mean just sitting there on the sofa one day saying, I want to be a millionaire one day. Well, okay, you want to be a millionaire. What have you got to do? Or I want to climb Mount Snowdon. Well, what have you got to do? You've got to get fit. You've got to prepare. You've got to show up. You've got to be committed. You've got to be focused. So, anything is possible, and I always believed that I could do it, but I never thought I would end up doing it, if that makes sense. But I had the drive and the focus to put it out there and make it happen. And I did.
I love that. I love that. Absolutely. So anyone who's interested in joining your network, what should they do?
They can reach out to us. We're on LinkedIn as IntroBiz, INTROBIZ, but also Tracey Carell, CURRELL. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook as myself, or you can email info@introbiz.co.uk or go onto our website and get added to the newsletter.
Fantastic. So, and can people dip their toe in the water? Is that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's so important to be able to try before you buy, so to speak. So what we do is we let people come to an online event or an in-person event or one of each. And, usually after the first visit that, most people say either it's for them or it's not. If somebody's unsure, we let them come an extra time just to, solidify that, to see if it is for them or not. And again, after the second time, they would definitely know if it was for them or not. So yes, we always let people come along. Our online events, we invite people as our guest. So there's no charge. And there's a small fee at an in-person event, because obviously there's teas, coffees, room hire, etc., and food to put on if there's food sometimes. So we charge a £30 plus VAT, or sometimes £20 plus VAT. It depends on where the venue is and how much they charge us. So
okay, and so somebody listening in here that's not based in the UK, what about franchise opportunities? Do you offer those as well?
Yes, we do. So we've got IntroBiz in Bristol at the moment. So what we are doing now is we're going to be rolling out to other cities. So I'm in talks with a couple of people at the moment in different cities that are interested in doing an IntroBiz event in their city. So there are opportunities for that. And if anybody is interested, we do actually, it is an application process because it's not for everyone. And I was talking to somebody last week. I had a meeting with somebody and they asked, and I said, no, that wouldn't be the right person for us, because it is a certain caliber of person that has to, and it's got to be people who are people first and foremost. Somebody that wants to run their own business, but they don't necessarily want to set up their own thing where they've got to do everything. If they want to buy a business in a box, which is working and it's already a well-respected brand, which I know we are, we offer that opportunity to come in, for them to come in, but they've got to be business savvy, obviously. They've got to be pretty switched on, people, because for us, our clients, we put them at the forefront. It's about what we can do for others. Our business is never about us. It's always about what we can do for our clients. So we're very client focused.
Brilliant. Okay, Tracey, you've given so much advice here today. So we've talked about what you should do before you go to an event, how you should prepare. Then we talked about what you actually did when you turn up at the event. And then we talked about how you should follow up. We've talked, I think, totally convinced everyone with all the opportunities that are there. IntroBiz, again, is an option if you wanted to try online or in person. But, even if there's a local Chamber of Commerce event that you've just always wanted to go to, but you always found an excuse not to go to at the last minute.
Just go.
Why not just take yourself and put yourself outside your comfort zone and do it? And, you won't regret it. And you may feel uncomfortable. I know I've gone to events where I've gone so motivated to get there. And then that minute when you're walking in the door, you're going, oh, God, who will I talk to?
Absolutely.
But you'll always meet someone.
Yeah, but when you're uncomfortable and you do something, that's when you're growing. Otherwise,
Exactly.
just stay stagnant. So just put yourself out there. What's the worst thing that can happen? Not a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And smile. I think if you smile at people, it's always a great way to start a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Tracey, thank you so much. Again, we'll put in the show notes all the links of how people can find you. And I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much again.
Oh, thank you so much, Louise, for having me on. Appreciate it. Enjoyed our time together.
Me too.
Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Social Media Takeaway podcast. If you loved this episode and want deeper support with your marketing, head over to sellonsocialmedia.academy/hello.